We're going to talk now about the workplace. And are you a person who, and look, I'm going to throw my hand up in the air here and admit this as well. Every once in a while you have bragged that you are a workaholic. Well, workaholics might be more likely to suffer from OCD, anxiety, and depression. Among more than 16,000 working adults who participated in a Norwegian study, workers considered workaholics showed symptoms of 4 psychiatric disorders. You heard me mention some of those disorders. So that's got me wanting to chat with my workplace expert. His name is Michael Ray Newman. He's on the News Radio 1040, WHO Newsmakers Line. Michael, welcome back to WHO Radio.
I appreciate you guys having me again. How you been?
Oh, I've been doing good, except, I've been bragging all this time, Michael, that I am a workaholic. Now I've got this study that says I may have other problems that cause me to be a workaholic. What did you make of this study?
Well, we feel like there is some validity to it. Now, take everything you hear with a grain of salt, though. I mean, there was a Gallup poll done last year in 2015, and it said 7 out of 10 workers are disengaged at the workplace. So if you take a bicycle, like a 10-seater bicycle, all right,
yeah,
and you put 3 guys at the front of it, they're pedaling like crazy. Then you have the other 7 that are coasting. So in a lot, and especially today in the United States, we've had the businesses are thriving again, and customers are coming back.
Yeah.
And the employees are not hiring like they should, so more and more has been put on them. So that's why you start seeing things that pop up at these kind of problems.
Yeah, so you're saying that you think, because if you're going to read this Norwegian study, it may say, well, if you already identify as a workaholic, you might have this. You may have anxiety, you may have depression, you may be OCD. But you're saying, look, if you've got a lot of workers that are unengaged and a lot of workers that they've got a pretty big workload, that may be causing these problems. That may be something to look at, right?
Which comes first, the chicken or the egg, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. Because, of course, if I'm reading the study as it is, then I'm a boss and I'm hiring, and a guy describes himself as a workaholic, I'd be a little bit worried at this point because of the study. What do you say to a boss that comes to you because you do help companies develop their workforce, and they say, guy comes to me and he goes, I'm a workaholic. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't think anything in everything in moderation. Anybody says that they're a workaholic, they need to refocus a little bit.
Okay.
I hear these managers commend guys for, hey, I call you at 7 o'clock at night, and I just want you to know that's awesome. People brag about that. That's not exactly how you want to be. I mean, it's Mr. Ziglar had a wheel of life, and it's a balance thing they talk about. And we're not talking about work-life balance in a 24-hour day anymore.
Yeah.
You don't sleep 8 hours and work 8 hours and eat with the family. Balance comes in seasons now. And the way to combat somebody that's that focused and that intense, you don't make them take time off. That's going to hurt them. What you will do is try to refocus, and they need to focus on their family and friends and their finances and physically and how they're doing. And then when you refocus some of that dedicated energy in other areas, you'll have a much more engaged employee and a better person.
So, Michael, you said something really interesting there. You said now that this balance comes in seasons. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, it's like we have – it's not like in the day-to-day. In the past, we would say you got to have a balanced life every day.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't happen. There's times that we really have to bear down. There's CPA has tax season, so they have to bear down. And myself personally, we have times when we're busier than other times. We work for those times, and we get a little bit out of balance in some of our personal lives because we have to expand more energy in our professional life. But we know that season's coming, and we make sure we spend the time, the effort with our family and friends, and physically make sure we're in good shape and make sure we plan for those seasons that come.
Well, and Michael, what you're saying, what it brings to my mind, those people that are like, I don't take sick days, I've built up all this vacation time. You're saying that is not a good thing, dude.
No, brother, it's not. You know what? At the end, when you retire,
yeah,
you're not going to be sitting up at the local breakfast house or at Thanksgiving dinner table, and they're not going to be saying, "Boy, you remember that time you saved the Johnson account? It was awesome."
Yeah.
People aren't going to remember that. So really take the time to reflect, sit back, take time for yourself to make sure that we can decompress and make sure we continue to respond and not react to life.
So you brought up an interesting point, Michael. You said earlier, like the guy who's bragging that I call, I take the calls from the boss at 7 o'clock, or I'm working on Saturday morning, something like that. If you're an employer, should you actually be worried a bit about that employee? Should you intervene?
Well, I think that there's for sure we need to set boundaries. And the way our work is starting to be now, we're always connected. We always are thinking about our job, whether we're entrepreneurs or we're working for a company.
Mm-hmm.
And know those boundaries. We don't expect to return an email or a text or anything at those times we're off. But it's okay to send things like that if you feel like that needs to be done. But understand that you won't get a response maybe until work hours. But that helps us get ahead. And the way the millennials are now, and they're always connected. And in January of this year, we have more of the technology millennials in the workplace than we did baby boomers.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2020, there's going to be 40% workforce millennials. So our work day is definitely going to change. We just have to plan for it.
So is there and then, by the way, I want to remind our listeners at WHO, this is a workplace expert, Michael Ray Newman. You've heard from him before. Appreciate him talking about the development of a workforce in this modern world of ours. So have you recommended any policies that an employer should put in place, Michael, to basically, for lack of a better term, force your employees to take their sick days, take their vacation days, take some time off? Have you been talking to some employers where they've got to encourage their employees to take this time off?
Yeah, we have definitely. A lot of times in the workplace, you're high performers. You just put stuff on. We don't, as leaders and managers, we don't really take a lot of time to talk with them and meet with them because they're not squawking, right? The squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Right.
So that's where you have to take the time, though. You have to take the time to bring them in, ask them how they're doing. I noticed you haven't taken vacation. Get to know them personally and let them know that it's time for them to have that balance, take that vacation. The worst thing you can do, like we said earlier, the worst thing you can do is make these guys take vacation. But also encourage them to connect with what their passion is to what they do. And when you have that, you'll have a more engaged employee and then someone that would take a little time as long as they can be a little bit connected when they're on vacation maybe.
And, Michael, you just brought up a great point. As an employer, I have to be worried that I'm not looking at my most productive workaholic employee and going, that's the person I'm going to tag with more work. You got to take some responsibility, right?
Take some ownership and make sure that you're training everyone and every person you manage in a little bit different way.
Yeah, very interesting. Michael Ray Newman, workplace expert. Zig Ziglar International is where he works at, and I appreciate his take on some of these stories about the workplace. Michael, thanks for joining me today. Appreciate it very much.
Hey, great to talk to you, man. Anytime. You call me anytime, brother.
All right, I appreciate it. Thanks very much. So here we've got, it's really interesting to hear his take on this. So if you read this study, the study was saying that there were psychiatric disorders among people that identified as workaholics. They said that some of the workaholics had obsessive compulsive disorder, some of them had attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, that you've got symptoms of anxiety, you've got symptoms of depression. But Michael is saying take a look at that because it might be the fact that you're a workaholic may be causing some of those issues. And I really like his point, if you're an employer, you got to be careful that you're not looking at your workaholic employee and going, that's the one I task with all the work, because he or she gets the job done. You'll break them down eventually, and those results won't be pretty. So something to be aware of, not only as an individual that may be bragging about being a workaholic, but an employer that doesn't want to take advantage of the quote-unquote workaholics on your workforce.